Our purpose is to build a holistic voice that creates a community of like-minded, healthy people for a healthier planet. Our goal is to unify the community, nourishing the growth in mind, body, spirit, awareness, and wellness. We want to engage our community and visitors so they have access to powerful momentum of the holistic presence in our community. We do this by creating awareness through interviews, providing education and awareness of cutting-edge modalities. We also provide access for consumers to quality natural health and wellness professional and practitioners and like-minded business that support this community. Thank you for listening with us on Healthy Planet One. Stay with us for the next interview with our next holistic guest.
Welcome, everyone. This month's focus is on transformation. This topic is multidimensional, and we have invited 4 guests to share their insight and contributions in their various fields. So we invite you to listen in each week to these in-depth conversations. They'll definitely make a big difference in your life. So our guest today is Dr. Charles BENS. We're very honored and excited to have him with us. He's a multi-award-winning international speaker, professor, and author of 9 books, including a popular and life-changing pocket guide that I've actually been reading through, which I love, on wellness called Health in Your Pocket. Also, I wanted to note that he was a keynote speaker in the first annual Swiss Holistic Health Summit. Preventative medicine is needed now in 2017. So welcome, Dr. BENS.
Thank you. Welcome to you all.
Yeah, so we have synergistic passions for health and optimal wellness. So, I love chatting with you. There's a topic that I'm really inspired by, and I kind of take it out in the kitchen, but it's kind of to try to make an impact in changing the healthcare crisis, which we don't really truly have healthcare. So what is your take on where this is going, healthcare costs? What's our greatest hope in this area?
Well, I like to quote a jurist back from the 1860s, Oliver Wendell Holmes, who, when discussing health and longevity, said the best way to live a long and healthy life is to have a chronic disease and take really good care of it.
That's have a chronic disease and take really good care of it. Well, that would be a transformative moment, wouldn't it?
Well, I actually find that most healthy people have actually gone through that very experience. In fact, I would say 90% of the people that I know that are healthy have gone through that exact experience of having to deal with something serious and then having to find a way to address it on their own because their doctors really didn't have any solutions for them. And so they ended up doing self-care and becoming very educated. And then they started to educate others. And I know that's been my experience, that I was interested in it kind of marginally about 35, 40 years ago. And then I became ill, and the doctors had some very, very bad solutions suggested for me. And so I just said, I'm going to try to do this on my own. And, I did. And that was the greatest and best thing that ever happened to me.
Well, when you say very bad, just talk a little bit about that. Did you feel like you were led the wrong way and you had to do your own research? How did you transform that moment?
Well, it was very transformative because I had a urinary problem and I was getting up to go to the bathroom 10 or 15 times every night. And the top urologist in Canada said, oh my God, he did an examination. I don't even want to explain to you what this examination was like, except to say that I was in the gyno chair that most women know about. And they put something inside of me in what I think is the smallest opening in my body. And it was extremely painful. They had to have 2 nurses to hold me down. And at the end of it, he said, oh my goodness, you have such blockages and an enlarged prostate and scar tissue and this and that. He said, we're going to have to operate within the next couple of weeks. And
that was his solution.
That was his solution. And I even asked the question, so is there anything I can do to change my lifestyle, like eat differently or drink differently? And he said, no, there's absolutely nothing you can do. So I found a natural path, and I started working with him. And there was no internet at that time, so I had to read books. But I can tell you, in 3 months, my problem was resolved.
Without surgery, right?
Without surgery, exactly. And that changed my life.
Is that when you became the founder of Healthy at Work, of the wellness company that you have, helping employees become familiar with these kinds of principles?
Well, that was a little bit of a longer journey because I was already an international organization development consultant doing work all over the world, making tons of money. And I thought, I'm just going to learn more about this. And as I went through the next 10 or 15 years, I kind of read some books and attended some conferences. And I actually went and got a PhD in nutrition. And one day I kind of looked at my library and I thought, where are all my consulting books? 90% of my library was health books. And then I realized that over the 15 years, I had put all my consulting books in the garage. And now 90% of my books are on health. And I thought, I'm in the wrong damn business. And so I decided to start to do something about it. And the next thing you know, I wrote this little book, Health in Your Pocket, and I decided to be a consultant. I hung out my shingle, and one of my first clients was the county of Sarasota, and I started to offer workshops. And that was about 25 years ago. And I then left go of my business. I'm not making nearly as much money as I did back in that day, but I'm enjoying my life. I'm passionate about it. And I've been on a lifelong journey of learning since then, and then helping others with everything that I've learned.
Well, it sounds like, you talk about the principles of functional medicine. And it's interesting because I see some people hang out the shingle, or doctors hang out the shingle saying functional medicine, and what they're doing is giving you supplements. But, I read this a wonderful little book that you have, Health in Your Pocket. And it's so comprehensive. There's so many things that you look at and I'm assuming that that's what you teach in your workshops and webinars. Is that right?
Yes. I actually read 200 books in order to write that little book.
My goodness.
So that's the culmination of the best information from 200 of the best books. And I've updated it 3 or 4 times now, different editions, because things are changing all the time. And so that book has been updated just last year. And yeah, I think that there's a multifaceted way to look at everything. No disease is usually solved by one solution. And the body is very complex. And so you have to use multiple solutions in order to both prevent and reverse disease. So that's been my approach right from the beginning.
Well, what you do, Charles, and the work that you've poured into 200 books, that's amazing. If people really embraced what you had, this would have a big impact on the healthcare system and the healthcare costs. Is that what you see? Can you say more about that?
Well, I absolutely see it going in that direction because I concentrated on workplace wellness. Because I thought that would be the way that I could make the most impact by contacting the most people. So speaking and writing and workplace wellness were the ways that I felt that I could have the most impact on the most amount of people. So I would say over the 20 years, I've probably had 5 to 10 million people that have read my articles and listened to my talks and gone to my workshops. And so if I would have stayed local, and I did try to do a clinic once, I was dealing with 5 or 10 people a day. And I just thought after a year of that, it wasn't satisfying because it drained me too much. I didn't get energy from it. It took energy away from me. Whereas when I talk or I write articles, I seem to gain energy. And so it just wasn't right for me. And so I decided to stay with the speaking and writing the articles and doing the workplace wellness. And then the venues, the audience kept on getting bigger and bigger and bigger. It went from local to regional to state to national to international. And I think that's the thing that's been the best blessing is the larger audiences to impact more people, as you said.
to get the word out to more people. Yeah, for sure. Because this healthcare will bankrupt our country if we don't start to take care of our own selves in the way that you're talking about.
Well, yes, and actually there was a British scientist who estimated that we will be bankrupt by the year 2065. We'll be bankrupt way before then, but he said by 2065, the U.S. will spend 100% of its GNP on health.
And this is because we've got pretty strong vested interest in getting a lot of money out of the healthcare system. How can we break that stranglehold?
Well, I was hoping that one day somebody in government would do it, and I was hopeful that Obamacare would do it. I read some of the first drafts of the Obamacare legislation, and I can tell you that the insurance industries and the drug companies, they lobbied and lobbied and lobbied, and that draft that I originally saw, very little looks the same when that legislation finally came out. It was such a watered down version. I lost a lot of hope in that case.
Wow.
But in the last 3 or 4 or 5 years, I've regained that hope because the Cleveland Clinic has decided to adopt functional medicine, and that was a major breakthrough for me.
Oh, okay. Say more about that.
Well, it was really an accident. This is how a lot of these things happen. Dallas Cosgrove was on a plane to Paris, and on that flight, probably in one of the seats near him was Mark Hyman, who was the head of the Functional Medicine Institute. So they talked for 6 or 7 hours on this trip, and by the end of it, the guy from the Cleveland Clinic said, "If it's true what you're saying, then almost everything we're doing is wrong." And he'd been the CEO for about 25 years, right? Mm-hmm. And he said, "I think we should bring you in to kind of transform our organization. If everything you say is true, if you've got all the science that you say you have, then my God, we have to really transform our organization." And Mark Hyman said, "No, I don't think you really do. Because what will happen is you'll lose 50% of your beds. You're a $6 billion operation. You couldn't survive functional medicine being implemented so quickly." And he says, over 50% of your doctors can't adapt to become functional medicine doctors. Wow. So for 2 years, they discussed back and forth how to do this. Mm-hmm. And by that time, he'd gotten sort of support from his board of directors and some of his key doctors. And so then about 2 or 3 years after the original conversation, they actually decided to make the change and put in a Chinese medicine clinic in their Cleveland office. And then they decided to start to do clinical trials where they actually were comparing some of the functional medicine protocols to the conventional medicine protocols. And they've been doing that ever since and rolling out a lot of the improved diagnoses and treatment strategies. And so for me, that was the thing that I said, you know what, there's hope now. Because after that was rolled out, Quackwatch, which is one of the organizations that goes after all these functional medicine holistic doctors, Quackwatch listed the Cleveland Clinic, the whole clinic, as Quackwatchers.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah. So that's the battle. You want to talk about the extent of the battle? That's the extent of the battle that's going on. And if we win this battle, 90% of the pharmacy companies are going to be gone within 10 years because they don't have solutions. They're managing disease very poorly at best. And all the science, according to Hyman and all the research now that I've done, is there for functional medicine. Traditional medicine only has science to support 20% of what they do.
Oh my gosh.
This was in a report in Newsweek magazine about 5 years ago, and the doctor that looked at every medication, every surgery, and he looked at everything that conventional medicine did, could only find science to support 20% what they're doing. The title of this article was Medical Guesswork.
Wow, that's powerful.
And so the combination of them falling and functional medicine rising is what gives me hope.
That's beautiful. And the other day you mentioned a couple of books that came out about cancer and Alzheimer's. Can you talk about that a bit? Because that's another breakthrough, right?
Yes, that's a major, major breakthrough because up until the time